Thank you for joining me for this webinar that covers the cybersecurity in the finance and manufacturing industry. Today we'll go over a few things, which is the compliance, understanding of it, importance, challenges, then look at what the finance and manufacturing industry has to follow. We'll look at some threats and trends. First thing first, I wanted to give you a quick idea of what is the purpose of the compliances and what is, so if we have a good understanding of it, then we will know why these compliances exist, what do we need to do, what are we looking at. With that in mind, if you are in that industry, you probably already know this, but at the same time, it gives you a good overview and it gives you the adherence to the laws, rules, and regulations, guidance, and that will help you as an organization in creating that process that you need and any relevant information that you need to build on it and build the business accordingly. And this is what the compliance will do. The second piece within that as well is what happens if you don't, right? If you don't follow the compliances, what are the effects of it is what you're looking at. I just put something in a quick screenshot of what some of the compliances may look like. What exactly does it do? What are some of the examples of those? Most of it, I put it on there, are related to the finance industry, but this has to do with more of Dodd-Frank Act or the PCI compliance on somebody connecting and accepting credit cards at their work, at their company. That's, again, these examples I put in are mostly focused on the finance industry. We'll look at some of the other ones, but with that in mind, let's look at what is the importance of compliance, right? It's there. I'm sure it is important. What do you get out of it? First thing first, when you have this, you are able to build a process. So if you're in a company, you're an organization, this will provide you a great tool. The compliance pieces is in creating a process of what to do, how to do those pieces. It gives you guidelines. You don't have to come up with it. You have to create something new, but this compliances will provide you that. As you have the process, then you can build a strategies on how to increase your business, how to work the business, what your business goals that you may have. That would also help you if you're working in that industry. Then it goes into a little bit of a guidance on it, guidance of the compliances, what to do, what not to do, and what is beneficial out of it. Now, when you're following this process and you have the strategies and you follow the guidelines and the guidance piece of it that helps you grow your business, you could really create those reports. One of the things is the audit reports. Whatever it is you do, the good example that I can think of that I've been thinking while doing the presentation, building this presentation, was a lot of the manufacturing companies have no accident. How long has they had accident free? That turns into a good marketing tool, right? That tells a client or anybody saying, hey, this company really gives importance to the safety of their employees, which really what it's saying is they have a great process. They have figured out how to make sure employees are aware of it and they are not having that many accidents. That is a good tool. That says the company knows what it's doing. Now, with that in mind, the compliance process, when you advertise those pieces of it, the client and the potential client will know, hey, these guys have everything figured out. Therefore, it builds that trust. And you could share that with them, that process that you have. What that does is the customer or potential client will know, hey, if I work with these guys, they can tell me where they are in that of we getting our orders. If you put it in order in, you having that process will build that trust with them, saying, yeah, these guys can tell us, are they running late or not? Well, the production is on time. If not, what is happening? That builds that trust and helps you gain more business. On the same token, if there's a data breach or if something is not followed, this will affect your customer retention because you may have lost or accidentally leaked, or the breach caused you to share or get that information for the client. and the business that you do, who you do with, the client list that may be. So that could cause a problem with the customer retention, and not to mention the brand recognition. I mean, these days everything's on social media, people talk about it, and the brand of the company. So cybersecurity and brand pretty much go hand in hand these days. Now, working in the compliance industry also has some of its challenges. And I thought this would be a good one to cover so you may be able to relate to it. One of the big things, or one of the things, obviously, I've highlighted 4 of these, is the business direction and the business model that you're following and you're putting into place. And if the compliances that you are in the industry that you're in, if it is changing, then that will affect how you do your business and the direction of the business it needs to go. With that in mind, the trickle effect is company culture. In the company culture, then you're now have to have all the employees aware, hey, the compliance has changed, we need to adapt, we need to change. That could cause a little bit of a discomfort, and because people are not very used to change. So that could also be a bit of a challenging. It's a minor challenge at this part, which is, you have to have a compliance department. The benefit of having it is you have one person or one department in charge of all the compliances. They keep track of it, what changes are coming in. They report it to the governing authority. You may think of it as an expense, but it is really more of an investment that you have one less thing to worry about. A compliance person can handle that, or get a third-party compliance company that can do these for you. The last piece I thought is pretty critical and important is in the regulated industries and the compliance industries, the new, outside of it, what the new trends are. And if you're wanting to adopt, how does that affect your compliance? If it does affect, is the efficiency still the same, or is it affecting your efficiency? So that is things that I thought, I believe could be looked at as the challenges in a compliance industry. Now, if you don't follow the compliances, right? If you're not able to follow, here's some of the things that we would have, things we would face. One would be, you have forced remediation, that you're not following it, you're not doing this or that, then therefore you have to follow this plan by the governing authority, or there may be inspectors on the site. There's a bunch of audits that are happening. That would create a lot of stress on anybody, the whole organization for that matter. Not to mention there could be fines, there could be penalties for that. Along with that, again, like I mentioned earlier, brand reputation, that could affect you having to do business with other people, new business that you could do can affect it. Here we'll go over a real quick couple slides on what does this affect, what compliances does financial industries needs to follow, then what are the ones that manufacturing companies has to follow. In the financial industry, the Sarbanes-Oxley Act that was passed, this one really focuses the whole thing. Out of that, only 2 sections matter, which is one 302 section that deals with a lot of the financial reporting of it. How do a bank or financial industry report or how their yearly, how did the company do? Did they have 100,000 loans that they gave out, or was it really that? Did they sell it? Those reporting pieces do matter, and how that affects their company brand in the future. So this one focuses on the financial reporting of its own institution. The second one is the 404 section. This one focuses more on the maintenance of the internal controls. For example, if we have certain rules, did we really implement it correctly? And not to mention if it's implemented correctly, or is it being adhered, and are those controls being in place, and are we really following those in that manner? For example, are we protecting the data correctly? Are we sharing the information correctly? Do you have the internally within the employees, did you train them correctly, and that they are aware how we need to handle that information? That's what this one focuses on. obviously the last piece that I put in there, it's not really part of it, but thought it would be good just to, the glass one. The compliance audit measures how well are you managing it when you do the reports and audit reports. That really helps them. And also it keeps the company on track. The financial, the second piece of the financial industry is the Graham Lease Wiley Act. This one focuses on three things: the financial privacy rule, safeguarding of the rules, and the pretext provisions. What does these mean? Well, financial privacy rules has to do with a bank that has, let's say you're banking with whoever it is, how well do they secure your data? How well are they safeguarding your information, right? Your personal information, your credit score, your social security numbers, your paycheck information, your trends. Those are the things that they, like how's your spending? Are they keeping it private, or they're reselling it? That's the piece that this covers. Safeguarding of the rules, this one goes into obviously more. If you have these consumer protection that you're doing, how are you doing it? Are those rules being shared with everybody within the organization? Are they following it? And not to mention, not just that, are you sharing this information with random people who should not be having access to that? And are you implementing all the policies correctly? That's what really this one focuses on. Pretexting provisions. This one is really important, but at the same time, I think is not given as much importance to it, because when you create this, first the policy, privacy rules, second, are you safeguarding those rules, right? Third piece is, are you protecting it, or the hackers getting that information from you or from your employees by simple social engineering? That is something that people don't realize, the power of social engineering. A lot of times people don't even know that that's what's happening. The social engineering is happening, and they completely don't even realize. They just disclosed information that they should not have. So that's a critical piece. This has to do with, are we training all the employees? Training piece is what this one focuses on. Now, this is mainly the financial industry. Now, when we look at manufacturing, one of the first ones is the DFARS. DFARS really stands for the Defense Federal Acquisition Regulation Supplement, which really within the NIST framework, it is the sections of the 800-177 is what that is. This one, I broke it down into the three pieces because it focuses on the protection of the sensitive data and the information you have. With that, I have three things within the compliance that it focuses on. One is the security assessment, identification and authentication, and incident response. Real quick on the security assessment, it is a company doing the assessment, security assessment, having to deal with all the protections that you have in place. Are you checking not just on the computers, networks, but physical security of it outside? Are you doing those assessment if there was new construction or the building access control? Those things need to be reevaluated every time. If you have changing in employees, if somebody left, are their badge still active? Is the network access still active? That's the assessments that it refers to. The identification and authentication piece, it's really focused on if you don't know what needs to be secure, then are you really securing it? Then how are you authenticating, making sure the right people are accessing that information? For example, if you have blueprints, if you have that, first you need to identify, yes, this needs to be secure. Then after it's being secure, where are we storing it and who gets the access to it, and are we really authenticating correctly? This really, the simple solution would be, do you have dual authentication on the network, on the computers? If they are able to access certain things, are they just doing it one time when you log in and everybody gets the access? Or is there more than one authentication, like when you log in, does a text message send you to confirm that it is you, or you're using one of those authentication apps that it's talking about? The last piece is the incident response. This is kind of the NIST framework that it follows, and it wants to make sure that you have a plan and a response if there is a security that has been breached. And essentially, it wants to make sure that you have prepared it, identified it, contained it, eradicated it, recovered, and learned from it. Those are the pieces. Do you have a plan for it if there is an incident that happens? And that's what the NIST 800 really follows or gives importance to. Second one is the ITAR compliance. ITAR really focuses on what really means, what it stands for. First off, is International Traffic in Arms and Regulation. That's what it stands for. It is the control of the export and import of any defense-related articles, and how is that being managed. The next slide, I'll cover some of the things that it wants to focus on. Who needs to be compliant. So if you are providing any information, providing or building any parts, building any things that are related to the defense contracts, in that case, you need to make sure who is compliant is all the wholesalers, distributors, any software, hardware that you're using, third-party suppliers, contractors. Everybody needs to be compliant as a whole. That's when you're compliant. What exactly within the what section of the NIST does it cover? It is the section 800-53. What does that really mean? It's in that section, it focuses on these 4 items, which is discover and classify, then map, then manage, and monitor. So I'll get into really quick. I carried 2 bullet points on it. Discover and classify security information, right? So if you have the information, does everybody in your organization knows, hey, this is secure information and it needs to be sensitive. Sensitive information needs to be secured. How do we secure it, right? First, we discover it and then we classify it as secure and then share that with people who needs to have access. Saying, yep, this is sensitive information. We need to make sure that this is secured. With that in mind, then you're looking at mapping. What does really mapping refer to? Is if you're saving that information on the computer, on a server, on cloud, are you sharing that information with the right people, right department? And do you know if that person, first off, does that person even needs to have that access to it? We need to determine it, then give them the access. So that's what the mapping and permissions refer to. Along with that, the access control, the second piece of it is if you're making those certain parts and such that needs to be secure, and that's does everybody has access to that area? Do you need to control that area? Do you need to make sure you have building access control, the badges, for example? With that in mind, do you have somebody who quit is still into your system, is still in your server as a user ID, password, emails? Have they been terminated? That's something that we need to constantly manage. If somebody leaves, did you receive their badge back? And has that person's badge been moved from active employees to inactive employees? So those are the pieces that the managing of the access control that refers to. Monitoring is really, we also have the obligation after you have this information, we need to make sure first the right people have access to it. Second, if they have access to it, how are they using it? Are they just looking at it and doing the work, or are they printing it? If they're printing it, are they shredding it? What are they doing with it? So we have to really make sure everybody's aware of it. And is that person copying all that stuff from the server, and are they copying it onto a thumb drive? Are they copying it onto the local disk? Because this also affects, when you think about when somebody gets a virus on their computer, is it going to corrupt the whole computer or the whole server based on how they have access? So that's pieces that we need to constantly look at and monitor that piece. Within the ITAR, I broke down a couple little things that gives highlights or gives you a little bit more importance of who and what this is. So ITAR compliance is really, it covers a lot of the military defense articles, that it covers anything that within the defense, what is it that it does, right? So any parts, any equipment that you're making, that is designed to kill, or is within the military setting, are these goods and technology? What does it do? It also refers to any space-related technology that may have, or missile technology, the defense articles, technical data, and not to mention after you have it, the licensing. So this is more of the discovery of the. So if you need to understand what is it, these are the pieces that help identify. Yes, this is sensitive information. Yes, we need to protect it. Yes, we need to identify who needs to have access. These would be a good guideline that can be used for it. This is the NIST framework that I was talking about earlier that every organization should follow, regardless if they're in the compliance industry or not. This is the cybersecurity framework that has been created, and this talks about, again, what we were talking earlier is identifying it, protecting data, information, detecting, meaning if there's any occurrence that happens, are we detecting that there's something an attack happened or a virus happened, did we detect it? Then how did we respond to it? If there was a ransomware, if there was a malware, did we detect? When did we find out it happened? Then how did we respond to it? Do we have an incident report? Then following that, recovery of it. If the files were corrupted, if the files were modified, how did we do this? Do we have good backups? Do we have disaster recovery sites that we can do this? So this is the framework that every organization has to follow, regardless if they're working in the compliance industry or not. Some of the security threats, I have a couple slides that focuses on the security threats that you could look at and be aware of it, right? So unencrypted data is the information that is being shared. What exactly are we the data that you have, is it encrypted? Is it being accessed as encrypted or unencrypted? Then when you save it, after looking at it, are you encrypting back so that it doesn't get into the wrong hands, right? For example, I think in the financial industry, the simplest example I could use is if it's a PDF file that is being sent. Does it have a password? Does it have some sort of encryption key? Does it send as a secure email, right? That's what it's referred to. Malware, we always heard. Malwares is malfunctioning software that gets downloaded on your computer by email or any thumb drive somebody may have, and next thing you know, it corrupts your data. Third-party services that may not be secure, that's a big security threat. You may be secure, but if you're accessing your portal by a third party to download information, are they secure? The connection between you and them, are they keeping it secure? That's really important. Data that has been manipulated. So for example, if you receive anything, then you are making changes to it, or during the transition, has the data been manipulated, or is it still correct in the original form? That's something to keep in mind. The spoofing is more focused on financial industry, but again, it affects anybody for that matter, is the spoofing of making it look like this website is your bank's website, or if you're ordering, on the common stuff that we have seen is the eBay website, Amazon website. They're fake websites, but it makes it look like it is a real website, and that's what spoofing refers to. It's more. The security threats, again, it has, phishing. You get phishing emails, so many emails, it only takes a click to get hooked on it. Next thing you know, you're compromised. One of the biggest threats is phishing emails. Data leakage, this is something that you may or may not even realize. For example, if somebody has downloaded something on their, instead of leaving it on a server, they've copied it on their computer. They take it home, and they may or may not use that computer at home every time, or they may have copied stuff on a thumb drive and they left it at home. Your data is at risk at this point. IoT devices is the latest thing that is out there. These are referred to your IP cameras that you have, the DVRs that you're accessing remotely. Are they in the correct place? The printers that have Wi-Fi access, that is a potential security threat. The APIs are the latest one, especially for the financial industry. For example, if you're ordering from Grubhub and you put your financial information, so is the Grubhub and your bank, are they secure together? Because they're using a third-party app from your bank to the third party, or these Grubhub and using the bank information, which one is not secure? We have to make sure that is, and that is also one of the big vulnerabilities and the security threats you may have for any organization and a personal level as well, just to make sure that we are doing what needs to be done. What's at risk is also theft of the personal data. That's the biggest thing, and of course the money when it comes to it. Going from one place to the other. Disruption of the critical services, right? No matter what industry you are in, if you are not able to do your job and that is getting disrupted, that is a big problem. And that is, that could cause a lot of financial trouble because they're not able to access that information and the services to be done. Within that, coming back to after the threats, this is the security requirements for the NIST 800-177. These are the 14 controls that deals with it. I'll just read them through to you what that is. Access control, audit and accountability, awareness and training of the employees, configuration of your systems and anything that is being used, identification and authentication, really identifying is this a secure data or not, secure information we need to secure, and who is accessing it. Are they authenticating it and getting it? Do you have an incident response? Maintenance of all that equipment that you may have, from not just from the technology perspective or anything else, is that being monitored? Is that being done correctly? Media protection, dealing with your thumb drives, CD-ROMs, are they being monitored correctly? The physical protection, meaning is this information is being kept secure? Is it in the right place? Personal security, the people, do they have in the work environment, are they in the right places? Are they accessing information that should not be, or is there a threat to them from the outside that could be manipulating them to share the company information? Risk assessment, are you doing that often? Security assessments, right? These are all play a very important role within keeping everything secure. Systems and communication protection, again, your communications, meaning your cell phones, mobile tablets, are you making sure those are protected as well? And system and information integrity, referring to, are you making sure that data is not being changed and it has integrity the way it needs to have? Moving on to the one, I thought this might be quick helpful as well on if you're in a factory, what are some of the things that need to keep in mind? Computers, right? On the factory floor, their computers, are they password protected? And how long does it take for that computer to lock if somebody walks away? That's something to keep in mind. Removable media. People a lot of times, instead of getting information the right way, they may use a thumb drive. Plug and play, copy information, they may leave it there, leave the thumb drive out in the open, that may have sensitive information. Hard copies, if somebody's printing, are they shredding it after the use, or are they leaving it, or are they just putting in recycle without thinking, right? These are also pieces that could affect your compliances. Are you training employees correctly to make sure they're aware of what is important, what is not important? Right? Do you have a response, incident response? Do you have that built? Are we looking, do the UN people know what to do when this happens? Mobile pieces, which really talks about your iPads, your mobile devices, how are they accessing it? Are they secure? I mean, in the factory areas, are people connecting to your Wi-Fi and listening to music? Are they streaming video? what is happening on there, when they connect. The access within the network, the right people have access to the right information on the network. Lastly, is your network secure from inside and outside breaches? So those are, and especially in the factory areas, a lot of places tend to use the cheapest things and not secure it, thinking, no, it's just a factory. There's not a lot of network security that needs to happen. But keep in mind, anything that has an IP is a potential threat. I'll give you a quick stats and the trends that is happening here. University of Boston did some of these surveys. University of Maryland did these. You'd be amazed. Every 39 seconds, somebody's getting attacked. Cyber attack, that is what's happening. 1 in 3 Americans have experienced some sort of an attack. They may experience it or see. It could be as simple as social media stuff, but that is also a cyber attack. It cannot be only work related, because your social accounts that you're using, that has a lot of your personal information. 43% of the cyber attacks target small businesses, because they understand that a lot of the businesses, small businesses, don't have the resources, and they ignore and they go, don't give importance to it, and they skip on having the good security, network security, or have security trainings. So that's why they get attacked all the time. 62% of the companies have social engineering attacks. Again, I emphasize on the social engineering. A lot of times people don't understand it. Even within the company, if somebody was working on a secure project, the other person from a different department comes, hey, how's that project? What's happening? When is it being delivered? All this conversation, it may sound like innocent conversation, but that is social engineering, is what's happening. 59% of the companies have experienced malware attack and botnet attacks, malicious code. And that's a lot of companies. Out of the, then you have 77% of the organization don't have a security incident response plan, which is really, if employees don't know how to handle it when there's an incident, they will not take the right steps to make sure to contain it, and that could be a bigger problem. Outside of that, then out of the 77% of organization, 54 of them said they have experienced attacks, more than one attack in the last 12 months. That is a big number. More stats. This is more on the finance industry. It looks like they have 2,000 attacks per minute. That's about 30 attacks per second that they're trying to access information. This one is something that may or may not surprise anybody, which is the average life cycle of a breach is 314 days. The reason for that is you may or may not even realize that breach has occurred because somebody clicked on a website, clicked on a link, and downloaded something, and information has been compromised. From the time that happened to realization, then containment, and covering it, that's almost 314 days, which is almost a year. IoT devices, being that those are the new things that are coming out everywhere, they are experiencing, this is just the start of it, but it's 5,200 attacks per month. That could be on the DVRs, IP cameras, your Wi-Fi printers that are there for convenience, your Bluetooth speakers that may be out there. So this is the most fascinating thing I thought, which was 17% of all sensitive files were accessible to all employees. This really goes back to what we were talking about earlier, that did we identify this is sensitive information? Then did we assess it to make sure right people have access to it? In this case, it looks like 17% of all sensitive files were accessible to all employees. That really, says that we're not doing what should be done. Lastly, social engineering is the most popular, at the same time, very successful way of getting cyber attacks. Some of the penalties in the manufacturing companies are if you don't have it, the compliance violation, it could start with $500,000 per violation, then fines up to $1 million. That is big numbers per violation, or the criminal fines for $1 million, right? So it's ideally, if you don't know what it is, it's better to get somebody who knows, who can do the assessments. Give you two examples I found. Was State Department fined this FLIR Systems $30 million in civil penalties because they were sharing information. And again, it could be that they didn't know, but again, that is not a good answer, right? The ITT had a $100 million fine because they were exporting night vision technology illegally. Their excuse was, oh, we didn't know we couldn't. But again, that is not a good excuse. You need to know. They should have known the very first piece, discover, which was, do we find out, is this sensitive information or not? Who do we do this and not? So that's, again, that's what that is. Couple trends to watch, and here is mobile apps is one of the things that keeps coming back because we're using more and more of it. That is something that to keep in mind is a security risk. Third party will continue to be a target. If you're secure, they will find ways. Cyber attackers are finding ways, and usually third parties are the ones that may or may not be securing all the information. Cryptocurrency obviously is back, and it's keeping all the banking and the financial industry on their toes, because when you have the ransomware and the cyber attackers are asking for ransom to be paid in cryptocurrency, and it's harder. So these are a couple of trends that we need to keep an eye on and see where it goes, how you fit in. So that's the end of my presentation. If you have any questions, let me know. I'll wait for a couple minutes and see if we have any. Hopefully this was some information that you learned, something new that you did not know before. Okay. Doesn't look like there's any questions here, so thank you for joining in, and I will have this, since this is being recorded, I will share this information and hopefully we'll have it available online. Thanks.